Hi, my name is Mark Bünger. I'm a research director here at Lux Research, and I'm sitting here with Chris Roche, who's the VP of
Research and Technology
at Eaton. And we're talking about open innovation and technology scouting, and just this whole process of finding new ideas, new materials, new business models, and all that type of thing. So we were talking a little bit about risk on the way in here, and I think of technology scouting as very tied to one's appetite for risk, and one's company's appetite for risk. So just to start out, can you tell me a little bit about how do you feel about risk when it comes to technology scouting? What's too risky? What's not risky enough?
There's an appetite for risk to generate big ideas, right? So there's a natural extension to our processes in the way that we think about how we do technology exploration, we call that, and how we look at the research, the applied research that we do, which is to advance the state of the art, and then how it might apply to our products, and then make some assessment of the readiness of that technology. We decide not to proceed, quite frequently, but what we want to do is we don't want to view that as a failure. We want to view that as something that we call shots on goal. So the more shots on goal we can have on something, we think the more successful that will be, and we'll preserve our funding in order to continue to do that and continue to have those shots on goal. So I think we have a prudent appetite for risk, but we very much understand our corporate strategy, and we understand our business's strategy, we understand their technology roadmaps, and I think we can formulate a pretty good technology strategy around that.
A lot of times when, by definition, innovation, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And so what role do things like, gut feel or passion or fear or other types of almost emotional things, what role do they play, and how does that affect your process?
When we looked at our strategy, and we look at not only the core technologies that we want to develop, those are the readily deployable technologies that we can build on. As I mentioned, we sit at the intersection of the businesses, so we have a very unique view of those businesses. But the other important part of our strategy is to create the opportunity to create disruption or transformational technologies, and we look at our megatrends. We look at the work that we're doing through our government funding programs, and some of that is really gut feel. Some of that says that looks really interesting. It could be a trend that could affect us. So, for instance, in the industrial world, if you think about cybersecurity. And the need for cybersecurity and that safety aspect, and to preserve our infrastructure, we will take a risk, and we will use some of our funding to explore that, to see who's good at that out in the marketplace, where they're going with that, work with our various businesses for a sponsor, and then go ahead and enter that into our process somewhere.
So you brought up two things that I think are really important and I want to build on. One was disruption, and the other one was your markets.
Right.
So a lot of times a disruption will come from an adjacent market. It's sort of
Exactly.
out of a blind spot, basically, a competitor you didn't expect.
Right.
So thinking about Eaton specifically, and maybe the industry more broadly, are there adjacent spaces that you think are potential new territory for you, or potential threats if they were to come in? And how does that fit into your, say, contingency planning around innovation?
Yeah, I look at disruption maybe a little different than you. Maybe I'll expand on that definition. Certainly when we look at the work that we do strategically, we have the core technology, our core technology portfolio, and within that core technology, because we sit at the intersection of these businesses, we know that through some of those technologies we can create adjacencies for some of the other businesses. And then we look at disruptive or transformational technologies, and I think disruptive technologies go both ways. So it's somebody who could come from an adjacent market and cause disruption, or you can do unto others before they do unto you. So I think we look at those disruptive technologies not as so much as a threat, but also an opportunity. And we have identified some disruptive technologies that are out there today that we think are germane to our markets, and then we're actively working on those.
Is there anything in particular that you can tell us about, like a specific either technology or market that you think is sort of ripe for?
Yeah, I think I told you about one earlier on, and that's this idea of cybersecurity and how we can deploy that in our markets. And I think a lot of our customers, that will be a big strategic shift for them, and especially in construction and infrastructure, energy, generation. Those are becoming almost basic needs. But we also look at nanomaterials quite strongly, and actually we have some pretty good ideas on there about how we can use nanomaterials for conductivity of electricity, and that will help us tremendously in our electrical sector. The whole idea of ubiquitous sensing and where that's going, and not just the sensing aspect of it, but how it's deployed from a material basis, or how it is energy harvesting, for instance, and some other things. And those are some of the what I would consider for us disruptive technologies that we're looking at currently.
What I think is really exciting about those solutions that cut across several different areas is that because the connections can be made relatively quickly, I think they're disruptive precisely because they happen instantaneously. It's like you have, obviously there's some work, but it's not like a long-term R&D project that is 10 or 20 years down the line. You get the results right away. So are there the things that you wish that you had in your portfolio and that you're looking for outside of the organization today, specific areas where you want to bring in some new capability or find a new partner or a new technology?
Well, the answer to that, the simple answer to that is yes.
That's why you're here, I hope. So,
that's why I'm here, but that's also why I have the job that I do. I have to keep coming back to this because it's really important, is that we, as part of the overall innovation ecosystem within Eaton, the Global Research and Technology organization is uniquely positioned because we, on a daily basis, we're communicating with all the engineers and technologists across all the businesses. And we have a very robust portfolio of technologies that allow us to say, if, based on this program that we were doing for control systems, we know that if it's applied in a vehicle, we may be able to use that same, for instance, battery management system over on a more electric aircraft as you go forward. So, 5 to 10 years from now, 2025 or so, knowing that, you're going to have this more electric aircraft, but also knowing that you have this complete portfolio of technologies as it relates to a lot of the components on the aircraft, not primary flight systems, but really the power of the aircraft in terms of hydraulics or power conversion or PHM, prognostics and diagnostics, allows us to be able to develop those solutions.
Okay, great. Well, this has been really a great conversation. I want to just wrap up by saying, are there any things that we haven't talked about that you think are important to bring up, or any questions that you have for me or the people that might be watching us later?
Well, as I said in my speech, is that innovation is intentional. I mean, and chance favors a connected mind, and from Steve Johnson, the reality is, if you look at any big idea and you look at any technology that changed the world, it wasn't serendipity. I mean, somebody had an idea, they worked it, they failed, they worked it again, they found connections, they found other people with ideas. And eventually they made that work, and it had a big impact on society or their customers, and we really do try and follow that same philosophy at Eaton.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your time. All right.